On the Common Link Theory by Alhomoudi, Mcgill University, 2006. Chapter 5. Ramifications of Schacht's misconception. 1. The theory of backward growth of isnad. The way that Schacht comprehended and presented the growth of hadiths as genuine expressions of the Prophet's words or deeds is problematic. Schacht's theory posits the backward growth of isnad, meaning that the isnad did not exist before the existence of the common link, leading to his complete rejection of traditions. This is not, however, the correct scholarly approach to dealing with such a massive amount of tradition. Schacht and his followers apply examples in support of the assumptions that confirm their premises. Schacht considers a rare case or irregular situation, such as the backward growth of the isnad in some of the weak hadiths, to be a common phenomenon. This case of backward growth of isnad confirms the contradiction between theory and practice. The method applied in this theory has been criticized by Schachtians themselves. Cook criticizes Van Es for deducing from a rare case of its kind a general conclusion, and accuses him of misleading readers by treating that rare case as exemplary when in fact it was exceptional. Despite this theoretical criticism, however, when it comes to practice, Cook takes for granted Schacht's theory that isnads were extended backwards over time, instead of having been retracted forward from the Prophet to his companions, to the followers and so on, which is exactly what he accused Van Es of. Established critical methods that we could use to test the veracity of hadith on certain grounds. Mosky, for example, designed two different strategies to cope with this problem. A critical re-evaluation of those studies that deny the hadith report's historical value for the first century, and B, an improvement in the methods of analysing and dating traditions. Both strategies can be employed either on a more general level, for example, concerning certain types of traditions, such as exegetical or legal ones, or on a more specific level, e.g., with a single tradition or a complex set of traditions. Schacht's argument is, by contrast, less convincing, that, in spite of their partially fictitious characters, isnads can be used to discover the so-called fabricator of a given tradition, by comparing all its different isnads and looking for their common link. In fact, these suggestions have been picked up further and developed in the last 25 years, so that scholars like Mosky now speak of the methodology of isnad analysis. Indeed, although some of the Schacht's premises are still disputed, his methods must be brought to the attention of historians concerned with early Islam. Schacht's assumption that the isnad grew backward was built upon defective examples, one of which was criticized by Scholar, who found historical evidence proving Schacht wrong. Schacht claims that Musa fabricated hadiths and attributed them to Zuhri, therefore his hadiths are fictitious. Through an investigation of the different sources, Scholar finds in Abdurrazzaq's Musannaf parallel hadiths to Musa's narrations that Abdurrazzaq transmitted on the authority of Ma'mar from Rashid from Zuhri. As we have already seen, Schacht was unaware of the fact that muhaddiths had already recognized the problem with the common link theory represented. It was not surprising to find, therefore, that Schacht also disregarded the muhaddith's view on the backward growth of isnad. In the tradition literature, there are sayings that are ascribed to the Prophet that for a long time had been circulated in Islam under the authority of another name, so-called mawquf hadiths, i.e., sayings traced back as far to the companions or even successors, were easily transformed into marfu hadiths, i.e., sayings traced back to the Prophet by simply adding, without much scruple, a few names at random that were necessary to complete the chain. Our observations thus do not mean that the backward growth of isnads never took place. Traditionists confirm this practice, acknowledging that transmitters did indeed turn mursal isnads into marfu isnads, but the raising of the isnads was not the normal procedure by which complete isnads came into being, as argued by Goldziher and Schacht. Rather, these were exceptional circumstances condemned by the traditionists as the work of dishonest transmitters. It is a typically Schachtian method to promote rare cases as a general phenomenon or standard, when in reality we find the honest transmitters never tampered with the higher parts of the isnad of the traditions they narrated to their own disciples. In addition to the fact that the only dishonest transmitters extended the isnads, Rubin furnished yet more proof to support the claim that extending isnads backwards was not standard practice. The popular or street traditions, for instance, constitute the more composite group of hadiths of biblical attestation. Among their authorities were some who were not companions, but only successors, including Ka'ab al-Ahbar, regarded as a companion, Wahab ibn Munabbih and Qatada. None of these successors appears elsewhere in the companion isnads, which excludes any possibility of backwards growth. In other words, there is no evidence that names of the companions were merely added to existing isnads of successors. Popular traditions of the companions, i.e. street traditions, are far more numerous and are mostly non-prophetic. Stay tuned for many more parts.